like this where this is going.
I looked at them. Oh man, it feels. Remember the
And
Brady Bunch
yeah,
box?
I do. Or also Hollywood Squares,
Hollywood Squares.
right?
It has no idea what we're talking about because
Get
we
a
are.
sham. We gotta pull it
No,
up. But
no
when we
clue.
get
No clue.
more technically savvy, we'll pull these things up automatically like Joe Rogan does. But yeah, so they have all the squares, remember? So they'd be like this. Like if you're introducing Jerry, I'd be looking at Jerry,
Yes, yes.
right?
Oh, I see. I see. Here, let me show you.
Please show us some skills, Idisham.
Something
Now
like
we're cooking.
there you go.
Whoa!
It's a story.
A man named Brady, and I don't know the rest of the
I don't
words.
know the rest of the song.
La 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 la.
And then we always have to introduce our wonderful director of operations, Idisham Khan, who should be the one that says,
Unleashed. Unleashed.
Yes.
I think Carlos has a better voice to say that than I
Carlos
do.
has the best voice of this podcast.
Unleashed.
There we go. Well, you're so bad. I was going to say you being a strong number 2 and me being a dragging number 3. So that's wonderful. Hey, I want to kick this off with a little bit of real estate banter. And I send you a little bit of information that's going around about the market and interest rates coming down. And I better stop doing that because then all you see is the top of my bald head. So it's not a good look. So why don't you guys tell me that?
I don't know, but be very careful because since Idisham edits this channel, he's done a couple of things so far with that movement and a few frames beforehand that he can really do some damage. So you make sure you take care of him because he has a lot of power right now.
That's a lot of power, right? So what do you think, Carlos? We have the Feds met today. In fact, I feel comfortable in saying interest rates have not only been coming down, they're coming down in a good way. So I think any buyers that have been thinking about buying are going to come off the fence and start making some moves. And sellers that have been thinking of putting the properties on the market, I believe is going to soften inventory. But that's one guy's opinion. I'm more interested in yours.
I like that, yours. Absolutely, Jerry. Thanks for the segue. Listen, I think it's funny because we were looking offline. We were going over we were texting back and forth on some different real estate news and some quote unquote experts in the market and how they feel about what's happening right now with the Fed meeting and interest rates going down, things like that. I think that one thing resonated to me, which has always held true, and I don't know what you feel about this, but the lower the interest rates go up, the more appreciation the properties are going to go up because there's going to be a lot more buyers in the marketplace, which is going to drive the prices up. So that's savings that the potential home buyer may think like, you know what, let me wait. Some experts predict what it's going to get to around 6 supposedly next year. So let's suppose it does get to 6. So if you wait from now to then, the home that you may want now is going to be that much more expensive. So the savings in interest rate, the point, half a point, depending on what your circumstance is, you're gonna lose out. So there's no need to wait to take advantage of that home if you really want to get into the marketplace right now.
I heard in one of those clips that I send you guys, I heard Barbara Corcoran talk about, and I thought it was well put, how really the key comes down to finding somebody to work with. And I'm not being self-serving right now because I'm a real estate broker, because we have real estate companies. This has nothing to do, this doesn't align with being self-serving. This is just common sense.
Sure.
When interest rates drop the way that they do, inventory is going to soften. But when inventory tightens, because inventory is going to tighten because people are going to buy properties, then you're going to start competing for houses again. I think there's still an opportunity right now for buyers not to have to compete as much as they had been competing, such as times during COVID and things like that. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's 100% on point. I feel that the purpose of the Fed for those not, and we'll put this in, I guess, in layman terms that we can understand first and foremost, is that their entire purpose, and it's funny because Barbara Corcoran also mentioned they really control the real estate market, but the intention of the Fed is to prevent that boom and bust economies across the country. They can control the inflation, things of that nature. So that's super important. But yeah, the buyers that are getting into the market right now, if you really think about long term, right? long term, if you're waiting for the interest rate to go down or you're waiting to make a move right now, you will lose a lot more money by waiting. And if you get in there now and interest rates do go down, you're going to win on two fronts. Number one, you're going to get the home that you want at a great reasonable price and take advantage, as you said. And number two, you'll be able to refinance when the interest rates go down. So it's a win-win for you. And people do that all the time. They refinance all the time. But they have there's this fear mongering in the marketplace with interest rates, when some are justified, where people are just petrified to get into the marketplace because the interest rates. But if they really do the math on the differences on a point difference or half a point or quarter a point, they're really only talking dollars in that monthly mortgage payment. You know what I mean? Now, if they're going to hold on that property for 30 years and they're like, I will not release this property for 30 years, then yes, then interest rates will be will be a factor. If you never refinance and you got a high interest rate, you're going to hold on to that home for 30 years. So it all really depends on what the buyers, in my opinion, and what the buyers, end goal is, whether it be investment property. Is this going to be your first home buyer property? Or are you going to, it depends on what your intention is, right? So
God, that was so
Can I
well.
put my 2 cents in there?
God, yes, but while you're doing that, please put up a picture, that picture of me being young and skinny in that newspaper clipping that we have. Because when you put that up, I have something to say about that arrogant and filled of himself individual in that photo. So while you're looking for
Okay.
that, go ahead and tell us what you got. I can't wait.
Okay, so being new into, well, I guess I have some experience based on just being in the real estate industry as managing a real estate company as director of ops. But being licensed now and looking at it through a realtor's perspective, I'm looking at it as if you can afford a house, if you can afford a home, even at a higher rate, and you lock that in and you buy now, two outcomes happen. If the rates go down, you get to refinance and it's a win-win. If the rates end up going up, it's still a win because now you're locked in at a lower rate than if you were to purchase in the next year and the rates go up. And then you hold, if you can hold, your property values increase and you gain equity. So I don't think there's no lose situation. If the rates go up, you're still locked in at a lower rate than where the rates will be. If the rates go down, you get to refinance and you get to buy a home that you can hold on to. So
You have to secure housing. I mean, if you're an adult, I think securing housing is the only thing that you have control over. And I don't say that home ownership is 100% for everybody. I don't think everybody must own a home. But if you want to sort of control your destiny, you have to sort of have control over what your mortgage payment or rent payments are going to be. And if you're renting, you're making somebody else's mortgage payment, or you're not benefiting from the tax, the write-offs. The reason I bring up this silly picture, because this is really when I was at the height of my ego. So being that as what it is, I thought that I can control the market. And what Barbara Corcoran said so well is the Fed controls the market. I thought that because I was good at face-to-face with people, I was good at prospecting for business, I was good at networking, that I was never going to suffer a downturn of any market. And boy, Carlos, did the Fed ever correct me? They took care of my ego. They literally stripped me of everything. I almost literally lost everything and I had to start over because the Fed controlled the market, as we all know now. But I think Barbara did a good job in explaining that to us. Please make that photo go away. Thank you.
I liked it. I was gonna put up one of mine when I was about 2 years old. I'm gonna
Bodybuilding.
Trust me, I used to look good. I used to look like my middle one looks now. My wife goes, "Look, honey, you used to look like that." I'm like, "What? What do you mean?"
Oh, you guys do look a lot alike. I would totally. You look like all of them because your kids are all super jacked.
Well, it's funny when talking about real estate, right? There's so many different perspectives and different viewpoints, right? From everyone. Like you have investors, major investors that say, listen, you should never own a piece of property. It's not an asset unless it's producing something for you, right? But the counterpoint to that, I would say, is that you have to, like you say, get into the market, get a piece of real estate. Why? if you're a first-time home buyer, you need that home. Number one, it's better than paying rent. Number two, over time, you'll be able to create equity in that home, and then you'll be able to leverage for your second property and eventually rent that one out. And that's how people make gazillions in real estate. It's like you mentioned a while back, I use your term, one brick at a time, right? We were talking one step at a time. So you're not going to have a huge real estate portfolio overnight, but you're going to build one little by little. And that's how the regular consumer can build their real estate portfolio. They don't have to be major player investors. Buy your first home, build up equity, use some of that equity to acquire your next home. And if you're buying in a place that's really strong on rents, at least in Miami, in our area, rents here will never be weak. They will never be weak. It's just really mind blowing. So be informed of your market and where you're going to buy that first home, thinking, if we're not going to live here forever, what's the next move? So if you can at least calculate or have an idea what your second or third move may be as a couple, as partners, as whatever, if you're buying it with someone else, be on the same page as to what that long-term strategy is. So you guys can have, okay, listen, when we reach this much equity, let's take advantage and go. And then you can time that with any fluctuations in the interest rates if they continue to go down, things like that. So and by the way, as a side note, even though, like you said, we're real estate brokers, but I wish I would have known that when I was 18 years old. These are all lessons learned, a lot of pain, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to learn these lessons of what life and real estate and acquiring wealth is really about, right? So we're speaking more from the school of hard knocks than from the school of having a golden spoon in our mouths since we were born, right? Which is none of our cases. So it's good to be aware of that sort of thing going into any kind of real estate investment, I would think.
I love the story of this client of mine who I still do business with. I've been doing business with him for close to 25 years. Let's call him Bob, just for anonymity. But Bob is a vineyard worker in the Napa Valley let's say he came to this country as a vineyard worker to work in the fields of the Napa Valley with his young bride, and started working for one of the big families here in the Napa Valley in the fields. Then he became a foreman. Then he continued to sort of build himself to the point where he bought his first little rental in his early 30s. And I was involved in one of his first transactions. I don't know if it was his third or fourth rental unit where I jumped into this. Bob has close to 100 units right now. Bob doesn't work for that winery anymore. Works for himself, and he is a vineyard manager right now. But Bob is worth probably close to, in real estate assets by now, they're all paid for. He's probably worth close to $20 million. And Bob has a second grade school education, because literally, just like you said, it was one brick at a time. For him, it was a function of living below your means. And he figured out the value of living below your means. The thing that he always splurged on was amazing groceries for the family and food, but everything else was modest. And now, Bob vacations in Europe, he vacations anywhere. Bob has figured it out, and I'm very happy to call him my friend. He figured it out actually better than me, because he owns more doors than I do, because he has always figured out ways to live way below his means. Me, driving fancy cars and living in big houses and taking huge vacations were the thing, and I call those experiences. But as you're living life high in the hog, it also takes away from the opportunity to invest more. So again, it's just something that I would recommend to people who are young. I'm thinking of your kids, my kids, Carlos, who can really learn from us and our mistakes, and how do they pick up the ball. Idisham obviously is watching us all do this, and he already comes with a lot of experience and investment. And he comes with discipline, and that's something I didn't have when I was his age.
Yeah, it's funny. We're never. I mean, everything is different, but and this is not a new concept or a new commentary on this, but we're never taught about money in high school. We're never taught about money. We're taught, science and study for this. And granted, all that's important. I think being well-rounded and having different perspectives of different things is really great. It makes us maybe helps guide us. But no one sits down and talks to us about money, or no one sits down. At least that was my experience in the public school system down here in Miami, and then we came from, and then just as a piggyback to that, we came from a family, you and I came from, we're obviously the same family, but with the thinking back then was like, if your son or child gets a high school diploma, that's it. The United States dream will open up the floodgates. They don't that's it. That's the goal, right? So every parent had that in their mind. Said they didn't, our parents didn't know how to speak to us about money management. And listen, after high school, you need to get your higher education, maybe depending on what you want to do. So my advice to myself back then would have been something along the lines of, okay, what do you want to do with your life? All right, do you want to be a business person? Okay, at least get a degree in business, just so you understand how to run businesses, how to deal with the different corporate entities, how to do profit rate, raising money, first round, second rounds, what all that means, investors, board of directors, and be well rounded, and then go into whatever you have a passion for. And if you have a passion to do something that doesn't require a degree, then don't do it. But in this world, you need a degree for the basic things of becoming a doctor, attorney, things like that. And the majority of this stuff you really don't need a degree for, right? So sometimes going to college is a complete waste of time and money for everyone involved. And that's important. And if for example, your family, you're blessed to have a very successful real estate business. We all are, and that's our family farm. Like all our kids are licensed realtors. Even though that's not what they're pursuing full time. But I told them, listen, guys, if this would be a goat farm and that's would be the family business, you'd be milking goats every day at 5 o'clock in the morning. So luckily, this is it's an information based farm where you can just get licensed and make an impact towards a family, things like that. So I wish I had that, that someone opening my eyes. Hey, listen, this should be the router, and tell me, what is real estate? How does it serve us? How does it help us? I mean, if I would have known this at 18, I'd be talking from this podcast from somewhere else, my friend, somewhere else.
Carlos, I like the goat milking analogy. I just don't know where to go. I don't know where to go from here, man. I've lost it. I've been a vegan now for a little bit over a year, no animal products. Now I visualize myself drinking goat milk. I think you just ruined my whole thing here. Which is one of the things that I probably should have done with my kids, is wake them up earlier in the morning to milk goats, because I think they were quite privileged, and it's a thing. Now they're learning. Now they're learning the hard way, because life catches up with us. We make our kids very comfortable, but then life is going to catch up, and the checks always come due. It's interesting how life does that to us. But I often think of the young people. If I was starting right now, what are some of the things that people can do to help themselves get into the market? I'd love to dive into that a little bit with you and with Idisham from his young perspective, as to what would you think are some of the things young people can do to try to get into the real estate market? Because we know that there's down payment, there's things like there is some first-time home buyer programs in the city where we're at. There are things like that, but then you also have to have credit scores. You also have to have things that are lined up and ready to go. So you need your ducks in order. So where should we start with tackling that problem of helping young people get into the real estate market if they're so interested in doing so?
I think that it's funny you say that. I think that they first need to understand what the ecosystem of the financial world looks like and what their role is to achieve that goal is. And what I mean is, you hit a couple of important points. Credit score, right? So you have to understand that you need to have credit to get a loan, even if you're a millionaire. If you can't buy cash, you need some sort of leverage to get a piece of real estate property. So either you're going to get leverage the bank's money, which is always a great approach, because using other people's money if it's an investment property, to generate revenue for yourself. And if it's a first-time home buyer, you still have to have that leverage. So the credit score is important. It's not the end all be all, right? Because the loan process, they look at the entire picture, your income, steady employment. Even if you're 1099 income, is the business profitable? You're making money at least consecutively for 2 years. There's a lot of requirements. So I think if they know where they fall within that scheme of who they are in that marketplace, then they'll be better armed. In a perfect example, again, from School of Hard Knocks, all my kids, my goal was, I'm like, they're going to have a crazy credit score. So from the beginning, parents can help their kids when they're young to get those phenomenal credit scores, and it can happen very easily. You have your kids once they turn 18. As a parent, you get them and you put them on your credit cards as an additional card holder. They're automatically going to benefit from your credit usage, and your credit score is going to boost their credit score. Their credit file needs to be strong. It needs to be seasoned. And what does that mean? You have to have some major credit cards. You have to have a car loan. You have to have different things, a variety of things, and that helps them get that first loan, let's say. So I think the parents or the guardian or your best friend or your godfather, godmother, whoever that person may be in that child's life, can really help them make that jump into this world by preparing them. And like, not to boast, but I'm super proud because I didn't have it. I had like a negative credit score when I was 18, if that's possible. I think the very first credit card I got when I was like 18 was American Express. I already defaulted on that like on the second month. You know what I'm saying? So, we have no concept. So I think the kids right now, like all my kids have like an above 800. And my youngest one, 21 years old, he's been approved to buy a home for the past year and a half, and he paid off his car in full. It's like, oh my God, who is this person?
Right.
And so these are all things that pain taught them, at least taught me. Like, there's no way I'm going to set them up for failure, and I'm going to have those conversations with them. So I think that if the person, doesn't have that person, that mentor that can speak to all these things, it's very easy nowadays, because there's something today that didn't exist back then for us, that you can go to YouTube and you can find your virtual mentor. You can find someone you align with. You can find someone that you think is reputable, that really has the same alignment and goals in mind, and you can really Google and have a mentor. I have digital mentors. So I think there's so many things available to people nowadays, especially the young generation, to take advantage of. But I think preparation is key. I think you really need to know where you find yourself. It's not just an easy, I'm going to get married, I'm going to buy a house, and then get married, and then how are you going to buy that house? And then you're stuck, paying $1,800 or $2,000 in rent. And how do you get out from under that? You know what I mean? So, what are your thoughts, Eddie? Since you're the best looking and the youngest one here,
The most beautiful hair.
dude. I'm looking at it. I think, and then one of my notes I made for myself here. Note to self: speak to Eddie about how can he make himself look more uglier and older for the next podcast.
Dude, it's not good. It's not a good thing for us, man. This is not good.
Well, you guys have lived through this portion of your life, so now you're in the more mentor,
He's basically saying we look like we've been through war.
Um, I like what you said earlier, living below your means. If you can, if you're young and you get out of high school, and you're going to college, if you're going somewhere nearby, you can utilize living with your parents and not having to pay rent if that's something they can let you do. If you show them that you're willing to study and they're willing to help you out by giving you a place to live, and you get a job that you're working, now you can save, if you can save majority of that money and put it aside and don't use it, within 5 years, by the time you graduate college, even if you're putting $500 a month, you could have about $60,000, which could be a start for a down payment in buying something. You don't have to buy something luxurious as your first home. You can start small, and yeah, you can start small, buy something not that expensive, and just start from there. We think that saving small amounts here and there won't equate to anything, but in reality, even if you save $100 a month, over time that adds up, and you'll have something way more than if you were to splurge it all away and use it all up. So I know it's hard when we're younger. We want to spend, we want to show everyone that we have money and we can buy this and we can do this, like show off to our friends and all that. But if you can live below your means and buy only what you need as a necessity, I guess you could splurge here and there, but save majority of it, your future self will thank you for sure. By the time you're 30, you will, from let's say you're 18, you get a job, you save $500 a month. By the time you're 30, you should have enough for a down payment and maybe even have two properties. You never know, because you can leverage the first one and buy a second property. So it's the system is rigged for people that do that. If you can, then you'll succeed. So.
those are great points. And something else that I wish I would have learned, and you spawned this thought here in the things you said, Itty, is that people understand what happens to money, right? So money sitting in a bank is money that's dying, right? It's just dying because there's inflation.
Yeah.
There's cost of living. There's a lot of things that's really rotting away. So unless your money's working for you, or you have it in a high yield situation where you're getting some exponential rates, some compounding interest, then that money would be going away. So you have to be cognizant of what you do with that money. And there's a lot of safe places to put your money, but it has to be at the very least meeting that threshold that inflation is not eating away at it, and the valuation of currency, right? So it's not, the dollar is not worth a dollar. So and it's funny that once you're exposed to this, you really have a better concept of like, okay, listen, maybe my $500 a month will be better served in this vehicle for whatever that goal may be.
Well, for most people, I think it's that gets a little complicated for most people, and I'm gonna pick on the young people in this regard, because I think I know young people, you guys, that are spending $300-400 a month, maybe $500 a month in cable, in TV channels. I mean, I know young people that have $800 a month car payments. I know young people that I knew a young person in LA who leased a Lamborghini for $3,700 a month and lived in a studio apartment. So, I mean, I think some of this has to do with priorities, because it doesn't matter where they keep their money if they're not living below their means.
100%.
If they're siphoning all of it just for show, I think that's short-term thinking. It's very, very short. And coming from the king of it, I mean, there was a time where I used to wake up in the morning to have to cover an $80,000 a month debt. I mean, $80,000 a month. Every morning I used to wake up to have to cover that debt every single month. And that, to me, my friends, it's called a hamster wheel. It's hard to get off of that grind. It's very stressful. It takes years away from your life. And all you have to do is just literally have the courage to just not care about what anybody thinks. Start getting rid of all that debt. I remember one day, Carlos, you're not going to believe this, because you know where we come from and you know who we are and you know how much we like to show what we have, right? And I remember one time, and my wife didn't understand why I wanted to do this, but when things got really, really bad, 2009, 2010, I remember we had a vehicle in the house that was a pickup truck, $800 a month, and we couldn't afford to do groceries. So the $800 a month was the problem. We did have some savings, so that was okay. And the only way and the truck was in the red. It was totally upside down. We owed more on it because we took it out with no money down. We owed more on it than what it was worth. We returned that truck to the dealership with a $14,000 check just to get that debt off our books. And you know what was funny is that type of mentality that set us free. We knew we didn't have to go down with the ship. And a lot of people just go down with the ship because they start caring what other people think. You know what I did with another $900, because all of a sudden I found myself needing a truck because I started to do some flip projects. I bought a $900 pickup truck, and I was driving a pickup truck after I'd already made millions of dollars in real estate. I went back to driving a pickup truck with 3 on the tree that we called Betsy, because it was an old beat up Dodge, and Jerry would drive Betsy up and down the Napa Valley while he was still ranked one of the top agents in the Napa Valley. But I knew I had to pivot, and that's been one thing that I've hold on to, is that ability to go down to nothing, you know. And from the young people, I would say, sorry about the can you hear the dog? My
I heard
God.
one bark, but
Wow,
I don't hear anything.
It's impressive. And there is all kinds of they're going crazy over the landscapers outside and all that. But anyways, I think removing ego from this whole thing and just saying, hey, I don't care what anybody thinks. I have a plan. I wanna own a house. I need to get rid of all this cable. Maybe just take it down to your Netflix account if you want to hang on to one thing. Some of these young people are gaming and spending hundreds of dollars a month in gaming, which I didn't even know was a thing that you could spend money on. But I hear that it's almost like gambling is so addictive that you can't even get off of it. And you're spending all your time, energy, and resources in gaming. So I just really want to caution young people against doing things like that, because your future is still something that you can, you can still get ahead of.
Yeah, and then going back to what Carlos said, that when you leave that money in the bank, yeah, it's true. A dollar's not a dollar in 5 years because of inflation, right? So if you can use that money and either buy gold, because gold is it's going to hold its value better than a dollar will, like inflation. Gold won't get affected by inflation. So if you convert it to gold, silver, and keep that, or put it in stocks. I know Jerry's not a fan of stocks, but if you're young, you're starting out at 18 and you're investing $500 a month into the S&P 500 index, you on the average return rate for that's about 10%, but let's be conservative and say it's 8%. Compounds daily, right? Because stocks are 5 days a week. In 10 years, I actually ran this, and there's calculators all online. In 10 years, you could have about $100,000 just by putting into the S&P 500, being super conservative, 8% return rate. Don't look at it every day. That's the biggest thing with stocks is if you're going to check that account every day, you'll see it that some days you'll be down minus $500-600. If you hold on to it within the month, now you're positive, and it just fluctuates. But if you hold it long term and the historic average, even with all the stock market collapses that have happened, you're still getting a 10% return rate. I mean, that's huge. So if you can hold it for 10 years, 20 years, if you can hold it for 30 years, that's the easiest way of becoming a millionaire. Putting $500 a month, hold it for 30 years, you'll have about $700 to $1 million in your account if you start at 18 by the time you're 48.
I totally agree with you. However, I will say that all anybody has to do to figure out what might be right for them, this is all a joke, right? But since I'm going to try to be funny, just look at our personality types. So you look at my personality type, I'm a strong type A, super impatient, and extremely hyper. I come into this with a different energy just to try to calm myself down, but I'm the guy that does not need coffee, should not ever have coffee, because my nervous system is always up in arms. So I'm always ready for action. So with that being said, anything that's long term and requires a lot of patience is something that I struggle with. I'm going to guess that somebody like Carlos, he's probably in the middle between you and I, Idisham. He could probably do both, and he can probably stay steadfast with something. And you are an individual, unlike a lot of young people, you understand money, and you also are super patient. I mean, just even your personality type, you play the long game, which is probably going to make you wealthier than any of us in the long run, because you do play the long game. So I would caution people who would look at the stock market every single day, like I have, to maybe steer away from the stock market, because if you are stressed by it, it's probably not healthy for you, because then it becomes almost like a gambler's sport. You constantly need that dopamine hit by looking at where your stocks are today. And I've had stocks gone up by a lot, and I have the same stock that has gone up by a lot come down and crash and almost become literally absolutely nothing. And while you're raising 4 little kids and you need cash, and the cash is not available, then you're going to sell. So that drives you out of the market. So if you're a young person, for me, if you're like Idisham, I like the long game, and taking a percentage of your income and putting it somewhere that's going to draw dividends. Compounding interest is the most beautiful thing out there, and you're right, it's the best way to get wealthy the fastest. It's just a lot of people struggle with not tapping into it. It's a real challenge, and I don't know if I'm curious, Idisham, do any of your friends struggle with that, or I'm just curious. You have you have a solid group of friends. I know that, so I have a feeling they might see things like you do.
I have Well, the thing with them is I have some friends, I have some family members who've listened to my advice and have uh just going off to college, worked right after high school. Went to a community college, was working and was saving all his money because he was living at his parents, didn't have to pay rent, didn't have to pay for groceries. So he was saving all his money and saved a lot of money, and put it into stocks and just holding right now because he's young, 18, 19 years old with a lot of money. He could probably use that as a down payment. Even if he could probably use that first time home buyers 5% down or something like that and buy a property if he wants to. But holding it in stocks right now and just long term, super long term, doesn't even like bother like doing anything with it. So, and that's partly because I was there to kind of help him through on how everything works within the stock market. He has gone into maybe a little more advanced stuff and day trading and stuff like that, which I advise against for him. But some people do it. Some people get really, really successful off of that, but that is very, very hard to do. Like you have to literally be monitoring the market the second it opens, and that's the whole nother animal. But I think having someone mentor you and like you said, the education system, they don't go into money. They don't go into they teach you about stocks, but they don't teach you about how exactly it works. They don't teach you about tax consequences. They don't teach you about credit scores. They don't teach you any of that. You said that compound interest is one of the fastest ways to get rich. I think it's a long-term game. I don't think you get rich off compound interest, but I think it's faster to get rich off of real estate than it is compound interest, right? If
Yeah,
you
I think
can
more.
buy
I
property
think
leverage.
I meant to say most secure way of doing
Oh, okay. Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But I will jump in. I'll tell you that you probably hit the most poignant thing that we've discussed the entire time here today is probably what Jerry brought up, where I think that before approaching anything, know who you are, know what you can do, because some people get caught up in those in the advice online and like, oh, this is the route, but they really don't know themselves, like you said, Jerry. So they don't know if they have that patience or they need that immediate gratification, things like that. And it's funny you say that about stocks. I don't think I've mentioned this to you guys. I've been trading currencies for a million years.
Oh,
I taught myself how to trade currencies actually in high school when there was no internet, and we had a project that we had to do a mock corporation, do the whole board of directors, the whole 9 yards, and part of it was to open individually. We had to open trading accounts. So I was at Charles Schwab on Brickell physically because there's no internet, and I opened a free account and I was watching the ticker tape. And since high school, I fell in love with that. Right? It was like, oh my god, this is phenomenal. And then over the years, and all the different things I've done, I've always had that passion for that. And you're right, and unless you become knowledgeable in what you're doing, you get frustrated if you're looking at stock prices every day. Is it a retraction? Is it a market correction? And then people don't know that the major market movers are institutional traders. So there's institutional money driving the market, and unless you really know how that works, then you're relying on someone's advice that knows how it works. It's a challenge. Like for me, my personality is in the middle, but I'm more towards the immediate gratification. That's why when I started trading currencies, I get that. How old are you?
sorry.
He's messaging me in the side chat here. How old are you?
The
You were
ticker tape. How old are you?
you are so good looking. I wish I looked as good as you on video. Well,
Pretty much.
Jerry, I appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, but it was a digital one, and then back then you didn't really have that daily fear of looking at stock prices because the only reference was the actual newspaper. So you'd look at it, and it wasn't that craziness that you see, that fluctuation. But to me, trading currencies is phenomenal, right? You're immediately liquid, and for currencies to go away, that means those specific currency pairs that you're trading. There's the base currency, the quote currency. That country has to cease to exist for you not to be able to trade a currency. So to me, that's phenomenal. So they can't unless you're trading a currency pair, which are called in the currency world exotics. Then you're good. So, for example, my go-to was always a euro dollar. I mean, the United States, the euro, the United States, and the European Union one of them has to cease to exist for me not to be able to capitalize on any kind of currency swing trades, and whether it goes up or whether it goes down. So it all really depends. And I'll be honest with you, in everyone's journey, you start looking at things. So every time I hear someone say, "Yeah, long term, the long game," I'm like, man, because of my career choices, I've seen a lot of death, like a lot of death. And the common thread I've seen amongst death amongst when I was in law enforcement, is that I've seen the death of young people, starting off their lives, people with long-term plans, people that are successful. I mean, we the human plans and God laughs, right? So I think that for me, the perfect balance is think long term, but don't put off any immediate happiness because you think that you're going to make it, because mortality is a real thing. And I can't tell you countless people, let's say police officers that I used to work with, that they busted their butt, right? Working 80 hours a week, 100 hours a week after their shift. They go and their security at a parking lot. They do a detail here, a detail there to get that retirement money on. They retire, they last 2 years and they're gone. And in the meantime, they didn't enjoy life. So to me, that's personally what fits well for me, is like, I need that immediate gratification. I will spend whatever it is, if it's to create a memory with my family, if it's things like that. And but I need that. So I guess that long-term thing for me, it's never been something. It's been like, yeah, I can plan for whatever, but you really don't know. So that's good.
I am just I'm gonna highlight a little bit of Irisham's superpowers. So the difference between this young man and you and I, my cousin, is that he gets to do all these extravagant things, but he does every one of them for a fraction of what you and I do them for. And we'll talk about that offline one day, just to have fun with him, because it's stunning what somebody at his age has figured and how to hack the system. I mean, Idisham doesn't spend an extra dollar anywhere if that dollar doesn't need to be spent. And it doesn't take him more time than it takes you and me to go to a store and buy something. It's
Right,
so
right.
impressive. It's almost a different mindset. I don't know if I want to give his parents all the credit or some of the credit or any of the credit. Um, they get some credit for having him, but he really has this superpower of, I mean, he saves our company a lot of money just because of the way that he does things. And it's in a mindset of itself of how to navigate in a way that you're not frivolous. Because I think a lot of us, starting with this guy right here, yeah, we go through life with this nonchalant way of doing things. I mean, it's incredible, and it's all of it is that hard-earned resource that's there that we just unapologetically just let it go. I mean, Idisham knows my P&L. Idisham knows my numbers, and sometimes he shakes his head. He goes, "Jesus, man, this is a lot of money that just goes out the door," and there's zero regard. By through osmosis, he has helped me become more aware. It's been fascinating experience being around Idisham for the last 2.5 years. Danielle, who runs our accounting, is been very helpful, but I think Idisham gets a lot of the Idisham. I mean, Danielle gets the credit for making everything clear when we're looking at it, but then Idisham definitely raises his eyebrows and says, "Man, I just see him go like this sometimes, and I kind of know what he means."
That's awesome. And it's also it always goes back to, again, to your ability to execute on that idea or that process. If that's within your wheelhouse, you can do it, right? If it's not within your wheelhouse to live a certain way, let's say, to whether it be diet, real estate, whatever, then no matter how much of a great idea you think it is, or you're going to subscribe to it, if you can't execute on that, like for example, if you can't execute on being SOS free, even though you think it's the best idea since sliced bread, you're always going to fail at it, right? Because if you need to know yourself, if you can execute that challenge, it's a great thing. But if you can't execute it, you're not going to be able to achieve it, you know? So that's good. Back to another point you brought up today in the real estate world. You said self-serving. I don't think it's not self-serving. I think it needs to be underscored and yelled from the mountaintops that you need to find a source of truth and a source of guidance when you're navigating, whether real estate loans, whether it be real estate. That is the key. That is 100% the key. And like you said, we're talking a lot of things, and we may say a technical term or industry term or whatever the case may be that we all understand, but the typical consumer is not a real estate expert. And the key to be successful in real estate, whether you're an investor, whether you're trying to buy your first time home, whether you want to buy a second home, is to get the right professionals. And this may sound, rhetoric, real estate rhetoric, but it's not. You need to find that person that you can rely and trust, that knows, that's going to guide you, and that's willing to make that the worst decision for themselves, which is not doing a deal for your best interest.
I love you saying that.
Yeah, rather than pushing you down towards the thing. And I always tell our clients, and we do, as a rule of thumb, as a rule, and I know you guys do the same thing here, we sit down and we do a consultation with whomever, the buyer, the seller. There's a conversation before we're running around doing anything. And we have to make sure you're aligned, make sure you have a game plan. What's your capacity to achieve this? And what are you trying to achieve? And sometimes the best advice that we give a client, right now, you're not ready. But whether you're ready tomorrow or 10 years from now, we'll be here to help you get there, or a lot of people are very trepidatious in getting a real estate loan. Oh, I'll never qualify. So the best thing that we do, we put them together. And as of about 2 or 3 years ago, we started to use Hilda, which has been your longtime friend, and she is just mind-blowing amazing. And just for some context, I've been in real estate for many, many, many years, and I've gone through a lot of mortgage brokers, and now I'm exclusively using someone that's based out of Napa, California, which shows you that anyone can have a license, but only very few people are true, dedicated professionals that can make an impact and really help you. So with that kind of thing going on, it's super important to have someone to guide you. YouTube is fantastic. The internet is great. Information is free flowing. But if you really don't have anyone that can bring context to that information, you're setting yourself up for failure. And that's something that's super important. So no matter what they do, they have to trust someone. They have to really align with a professional, and to get those things done, or at least have some insight as to what needs to be done to achieve that specific goal.
I've heard you guys mention the words credit scores more than once today, and and you mentioned Hilda now, so I want to highlight that. Besides the fact that we should have her on one of our episodes soon, because this would be wonderful to have her here. But Hilda, one of the things that she has that I don't know that a lot of mortgage individuals have is, and it's been super useful for me, because a lot of times I'm doing projects and I'm spending funds and using credit, doesn't necessarily affect your scores positively. When you use your credit, even though we pay our bills early or on time, when we're using credit, it impacts our credit scores. And anytime before we go take out a mortgage on anything that we're buying, we have Hilda run this through this application that she uses. And this application gives us a small guide on exactly how to get our credit scores from this place to that place, literally a playbook. And it was so fascinating that I found myself with a credit score, I want to say it was in the mid to high sixes, which is very low for us. Usually we're in the high sixes, worst case scenario, low to mid sevens. And then once in a while we get into the eights when everything just aligns for us. But because we do use a lot of these resources for clients, we use lines of credit for different things and projects that we do to help people put their house on the market. And we keep money moving like that. Our credit scores kind of fluctuate a little bit much. So before we go get our own mortgage, Hilda runs us through the system. And Carlos, if you can believe this, the system just told me to take my name off of one of Susan's credit cards. And that one thing alone improved our credit scores by 60 points. All I had to do was call in, remove my name from Susan's credit card, and all of a sudden, our credit scores went up from, like, I want to say the low sevens to the high sevens. And all of a sudden, we went from being a good borrower to being the very best borrower there is and getting an amazing interest rate. So the resources are out there. I think you're saying it so well when you tell people it's all in who you align with. It's literally all in who you align with. Well,
And it's important because I'm sure you guys get the same thing when you first have that home buyer. Let's say the first home buyer, as an example, they're just honed in on that credit score because that's what they hear: credit score. But let's be honest, you can have an 850 right now, and your debt to income ratio is crap, and you have more obligations than you have income, and that could be the most perfect credit score, but and it's not going to work. Obviously, you're not going to have any 50 having a negative in that situation, but it's an entire picture, right? And then the credit score is comprised of different factors, like on-time payments is a greater majority that affects your credit scores, and then your overlying obligations. So and what's crazy is that it's not a permanent thing. Your credit scores change every single month. You have a credit card. There's a closing date. They report it every single month to the 3 credit bureaus, and then that credit is going to affect your credit score. So you don't have to be nervous that oh my god, I can't, there's no way out of this. Absolutely. If you're piggybacking on someone's credit, like you said, if you have someone that you're just an additional card holder, you get off their account, that can either help you or hurt you. But without a professional like Hilda to guide you on if it's going to help you or hurt you, then you have to know. But the picture is more broad than just, oh, credit score, I can buy a house. It doesn't work that way. It's more complex. And again, harping back on that, you need to speak to professionals. And since we're talking about real estate, so if you're going to buy a home, and even if you're a savvy investor, it's always good to have a professional, because you have to have that buffer when it comes to negotiating and not be so personally invested and have someone else see what you may not be seeing because you're in the middle of the battle, so I think those are things that are super, super, super important, and no one does. I mean, down here, you literally have the way that Zillow works. That's another topic for another conversation. But the way Zillow works down here, that's where the consumers online, they see a house and they're like, oh my gosh, I want to go see this house, honey. They click on a button, and then, because we've been at the other end of that button, and they click on a button, and then all of a sudden a realtor calls them. Hey, so-and-so, how are you? Saw you're interested in that property. Yes. So they are thinking that realtor is the listing agent. It's not the listing agent. And they want to hook them, right, to make certain. And you have people that start running around with buyers all over town without even knowing if they're qualified, without even, and that's a disservice. That honest conversation is something that's challenging, because you may have to say goodbye to that lead, so
And I
it's a
would caution,
balancing act.
I would really caution buyers or against signing anything with any of those agents, like a buyer's agent agreement, because all of a sudden you'll find yourself, indebted to that person that hasn't done a single thing for you. So be careful with that, and make sure that you get referrals, you read reviews, you do all the things that you should do before you get into a relationship with anybody. It's just like dating, and I haven't done that in 36 years. So could you imagine what it would be like to be dating these days, Carlos?
You haven't dated your wife? Don't you go have dates and stuff like that?
All the time, but I see the single people right now navigating it. That's just the Wild West, my friend, the swiping world.
The swiping, what is it? Up and down, sideways, whatever it is.
It's right or left, Carlos. I think right you're in, left you're out.
You
Why
see
do I
that,
know?
Idisham? How I made him give himself up? How do you know that?
Why do I know so much?
I was gonna say, welcome to Primo Real Estate News Channel, where we talk about real estate, credit scores, and dating
Dating.
advice.
All right, Jerry. Hey, Jerry.
Hey, Carlos.
What's the most effective pickup line you used to use back in the day? Tell us.
I don't have a pickup line. I was not a pickup line guy. I might, dude, the arrogance. I just thought I looked so good that they would just come to me. I stood alone for a long time, man. I just waited.
I have one, but it's not appropriate. I'll tell you offline what it was, and it was super effective, but it's very
Oh,
not. But it's not appropriate. It'll blow your mind. But anyways,
you're the king of one-liners, man. I know you can turn it on.
you just have to be. Hey, listen, it's just like anything else. If you can sell real estate, you can get the confidence of people. I think that's where that skill got honed in back in the
It
day.
was from the dating world.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
I'll say one thing, maybe to save my own skin. I'm glad I don't have to do that anymore, man. That looks rough out there, and I'm sorry for anybody that has to endure that. And hopefully they find their special someone soon, because it's the better side of that coin.
And that's if the person on the other end is actually that person.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You could be whatever you are. If you're a male looking for a female, male looking for a male, whatever. If
Doesn't matter.
what you see on the other end, sometimes it's not what you see. It could be Bob, another Bob, sitting in Wyoming, that's like 60 something years old, drinking
Yeah.
himself to death and like
Yeah.
having some fun with you. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So
it's caution. How do we wrap up today's episode? I don't know that there's much more to be said. We need a sign off. We need some kind of a cool sign off. I don't know what it needs to be, but let's work on that. And maybe it is Primo Real Estate News Channel, and then Carlos says unleashed.
unleashed. Unleashed.
I like that.
Hey, you know what? I did want to add something. I've been thinking about this all week, right? Is a favor or something you're doing for someone, just take a different a different cadence here. When you're doing a favor for someone or helping them, is it more of an impact if it's causing you difficulty or puts you in a difficult position, or whether it be a financial position, whether it be in uh, a uh, a mental health position? If you're stressing to help someone,
Yeah.
is that a true favor? I believe it is. Only because I've always thought, and I want to hear both your perspectives on this. I've always thought that, for example, if I'm driving right now and I have $10 in my wallet and I see a homeless guy and I give him 10 cents, it's not much of a favor, right? If I give him the whole nine, that's a favor.
Right.
If I'm doing something for you that I can do with my eyes closed, it's still an assistance, but it's those hard things you do for people that are really that make an impact in whatever they're trying to achieve, whether it be personal. I'm not talking about business anymore here. Like family member that needs something. If it's putting you out, if it's putting you in a bad headspace, but that to me is the real favors of this world, right? When you're putting yourself in an uncomfortable position, you're personally to
Yeah.
help someone, whatever that situation may be, whatever their challenge or their assistance may be, right? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's funny. Irisham, do you have something? Or I got something that just came up for me.
I was gonna say, even if you gave someone 10 cents, I guess it depends on their situation, because that could be huge for them. It might not be something that uh, might not affect you, but I guess it ends up being on the person receiving the favor in their situation. Um, that 10 cents, maybe he has enough that he gathered throughout the day, and that 10 cents could be something that makes his day. And you end up doing that without you affecting his wallet, or without affecting your wallet. Um, any kind gesture, I don't, if you can do more, I always say, if you can do more, do more. If you can't do more, anything helps. That's just how I look at life. Um, but
That's the whole point right there. If you have the capacity to do more, you should always do
yeah,
the more, right? Not
yeah.
the less.
If you can do more, do more. Don't don't skimp out, as what I would say. If then again, it's if you can, right? It's not saying, oh man, I have $10. No, it only counts if you pay nine. No, if you can only give them five, four, three, that the if is it's important.
I just think that helping always has to feel a little uncomfortable in my book. I think it always has to feel a little uncomfortable, at least for me. At least maybe it's a selfish thing to know that, okay, I'm really putting out for this person, for this situation, for this relationship. You know what I mean? If
Yeah,
it's that, if it's yeah,
it comes down to the ethics of it, essentially, right? That one's it's a little tricky. I don't necessarily think you have to feel like you're stressing yourself out, and that's what counts. Um, it always comes down to, look at someone who has less than you and put yourself in that shoe and see how you would feel. And if that's I want to hear what Jerry has
yeah.
to say. He's got one. So
Well, I kind of just to clarify, it was kind of more metaphorically. So it's kind of like if I feel like, for example, if Jerry or either one of you, Carlos, can you help me with this, or I'm trying to get this done, can you help me? If my capacity in helping you is 100%, is 100%, and this is zero, and I'm like, sure, Jerry, you're idiot, I can help you, and I help you this much, but my capacity to help you is way up here. That may put some challenges on my time, put some
yeah,
challenges on anything else in my life. I like to always broach that, not because I'm a hero or anything, but I feel like I'm making an impact, right? So if I can help
yeah,
you as much as possible in whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, whether it be a bad situation, a good situation, make a situation better, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be money. Whatever it is, I feel like I'm contributing as a true friend, as a true family member, as whatever. If I put myself in that area where I know I'm putting out, or I know, okay, this is getting a little, but I'm going to do this for this person. I don't know. It's
yeah,
something weird.
yeah.
Jerry?
Well,
I
I
agree
really,
with that.
no, and it really aligns with. I mean, so much of what you were saying, Carlos, aligns with something that I recently went through, because I don't know that I've experienced that a lot till a day. a day that Idisham knows real well because we were having our company Christmas party that morning. And that morning, a friend of mine was really struggling with some personal things. And, I'm on my way to this party. There was a time when I was supposed to meet somebody. And there's something you said a little while ago that really resonated was when you were at your max, when I was at my max, is when this friend needed help. And it would have been really easy to say, oh gosh, I'm on my way to this thing. Can you check in with somebody else? Can you check in with your spouse? Can you, deflect? I could have really deflected. And for some weird reason, and I was not only was it our Christmas party day, we were also in the middle of a significant family crisis at that time. So the glass was full. I love the way you used that. Like the day was here already. The Christmas party I should have probably canceled. There's no reason I should have had a company Christmas that day while we're in family crisis. So there was already a doubling of things. But then I just thought, this friend really is struggling. And by me doing a couple of things, by moving some things in the Christmas party and by thinking out of the box, it really expanded me in such an interesting way because I had to become so resourceful and so focused as to how to delegate certain things to happen so the party could still happen. And guess what? It all came together, and my friend was better for it because she really felt like I was there, even though what she needed me to do wasn't even necessary. What she needed me to do wasn't even necessary. But the fact that she felt that I stopped everything for her, I think was enough to just buy her more time, which is what she needed, was more time. It was so, man, you just said that so in such a way that I connected so deeply with it because that was the perfect example of that moment in that day, which was only a couple of weeks ago. It was amazing. And I just, after that, I thought, oh, by the way, at the end of that day, I you could have knocked me over with a feather. I was done. Emotionally, mentally, I was done. But I thought, what a day. What a day. I've never appreciated time together with the people in our company the way that I appreciated it that day, and the way that I saw people that day, because that friend ended up attending that party, which she wasn't going to attend. It just became so beautiful.
That's what life is about. If you're gonna show up, fucking show up.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
I'm your cousin,
Yeah.
I'm gonna show up.
Yeah. Yeah. You're
Not
that guy.
not only no, I'm saying, and you're gonna show up.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what? Because it says cousin on Facebook, and I like a few things. That's not showing up, right?
Yeah.
So I've always been that. If you're gonna show up, show up,
Show up.
and show up when it's uncomfortable to show up. Show up when it's not convenient to show up.
Yeah.
But show up. That's
Yeah.
why, to me, and I know, and I've always had.
Irisham, I'm feeling like he's holding on to something. Hold on, there's something coming.
No.
I think I missed something. Did I not show up one day? What happened?
Oh, no. This is has nothing to do with you. Otherwise, I'd be telling you, Jerry, show up. So yeah, so that's the big thing, right? Show up. And I think,
Really
and
show up.
I don't believe in that adage that I know you believe in it, so it's just a difference in opinion, but I don't believe that because we share the same DNA that we're family. That means nothing to me. What means something to me is, I always gone by this, that family is a verb and not a noun. And I don't care if you're related to me, because I've had a lot of people in my life, in my journey, that we do not share an ounce of DNA, and have shown up for me more than anyone that I share DNA with the exception of my mother and my wife and my kids. So it's a verb. So there's no, it's like a membership to a club where you're like, oh, I'm already a member, so I'm good no matter what I do. I don't believe in that. So I don't know. It's just one of those things that I've been thinking about lately. You know what I mean? That what motivates us, and it's just one of those things that, I'm sorry, I just don't feel that way. That if you're related, well, that's it. It's all good. No, it's not all good.
No.
Show up or don't show up.
No, well, yeah, we can go deep into that wormhole, man.
And you show up, and you definitely show up, Jerry.
I try. I try. It is some questions that man because I do cancel a lot of. Oh, can we push it out an hour? Can we do?
And I think that, and the problem with Idisham showing up is that we have to ask him for ID because people may think we're violating some child labor laws by having him on here because he looks so damn young. We promise you, he's over 18. We promise.
Oh, he's stepping up his.
The beard helped. The beard helps.
Yeah, you got to grow it out.
Goodness for that. Yeah, don't take that thing off.
For next podcast, Iddy was telling me that he used to grow the beard. He used to have a massive beard. So did I. So we're gonna. Don't show me that picture. I won't show you mine. And next podcast, we're going to see who wins the beard competition.
The beard competition.
Yeah.
All right, guys. On that note, we are out of here. I'm going to
go. We're unleashing. It's unleashed.
Okay, here we go. Ready?
Here we go.
This is going to sign off. We'll modify it. So when I say let's go, Jerry, you say Primo Real Estate.
Primo Real Estate.
No, you say Primo. You say News Channel, and I'm going to say Unleashed.
Oh, I like it. All right, so everybody, this is our new sign off. I hope you have an amazing week. We'll see you next week. Signing off, one of your hosts, Jerry Pujals with Primo Real Estate.
Hit the subscribe button. News Channel.
Make sure you like and share. Unleashed.
I love it. Let's do that some more.